From an undisclosed secret location, joining me now is one of Hollywood's favorite legends, Bobby Carradine. And you know this guy well from everything, but he goes back a long way with a mutual friend we just lost, Peter Jason. And lately, a lot of conversations have been centered around that epic piece of work that was the Peter Jason machine. But Bobby knew him probably better than anyone. You're in Europe, but we can't say where. Secret assignment, I'm guessing. But how you been, and what are your thoughts this morning?
Uh, I've been good. My thoughts are that I'm really enjoying being here.
Yeah,
It's a way different scene than the United States is right now, needless to
yeah.
say. But yeah, Peter, I remember the first time that I became aware of Mr. Peter Jason. I was living with my brother David in Laurel Canyon, and I was going to Hollywood High, and I needed a bicycle. And he said, "Well, I've got a Peugeot that you can borrow." And I said, "Oh, great, man." So I rode his bike to school, and I locked it. I put a lock through the front tire, not realizing that it's a European bike, and they have a little lever that you move. You don't need a wrench to take the front wheel off. So I came back out after school, and the front wheel was there, but the rest of the bike was gone. So I had to replace his Peugeot 10-speed bike. And that was my illustrious introduction to Peter Jason.
There's a lot of Peter Jason moments out there. So you worked with him on several movies.
I
Um,
did. I did work, I think, 3 movies, if not more. Uh, Escape from L.A., Body Bags. Let's see what else. Uh, Ghosts of Mars. We had a good time on that one.
Shining Canyon, this is Transmarinera 74 Yankee.
They ready for us?
This storm is really kicking up a mess. I can't get through to the tower.
Here's your coffee, Mr. McSims. 3 sugars and 2 whites, just the way you like it. You want some?
No, thanks.
There might be another one or two in there, but they escape my mind at the moment.
he told me some stories about you guys from the Long Riders,
Oh,
and
yeah.
in it over the years, it seems like that cast remained pretty tight.
You got it wrong, mister. We didn't do nothing.
Yes, you did. Some of our friends saw you on the North Road that night.
Now, please, mister, it wasn't really a bomb. It was just supposed to smoke everybody out.
My little brother was 15 years old. Now, you think about that. On your way to hell.
I've met a few. By the way, you're one of the best in it. But
Oh, thank you.
he. I'll never forget sitting around his table out back because he liked to cook for people.
Yes, he did. He loved to cook.
Yeah, and I remember he said, "Bobby Carradine, now there is a real talent. There is a guy who can light up a room." And then he would start doing his like Jasonisms because Peter was really kind of an upbeat, shockingly upbeat at times guy, especially given what he was dealing with. But he would throw it back and he would tell stories primarily from the Long Riders, which I guess started off his partnership with Walter Hill. But you guys, I've seen you guys in like 3 or 4 John Carpenter movies, and those directors only hire a certain kind of actor that bring a lot of, I guess, not only gravitas but a working skill set that's easy.
Well,
So
for Peter, he referred to Walter Hill and John Carpenter as his go-to guys. So if they were ever making a movie, he would find a way into it.
yeah. Yeah, he did do that. And I remember he was very proud of Escape from LA because he said, "Oh, this is wonderful. I get to play a fascist prick."
Hello, Pliskin. Welcome to L.A. So what happened to you, war hero? You were the best we had. Now you're just like one of them. You had it all, and you turned away from your country. What do you have to say, Pliskin?
Call me Snake.
And do you have a Peter Jason story besides the bicycle, the legendary bicycle incident, or a story or two that sums up who he was?
Well, you were at his place, so you
Yeah.
know he had that guest house in the back.
Legendary.
And, I was among the thousands of people that got to stay in that guest house. And sometimes I'd come out in the mid-morning and he'd say, "You want a sandwich?" And I go, "Sure." And he would just whip up this excellent sandwich. And we'd sit there and eat BLTs or whatever he was cooking that day. And we used to stand out there and just shoot the breeze while he watered the garden. Because as I'm sure you know, he had a really nice garden.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He loved it. And he would also, like, he had these unique hobbies. Like, he would drive around his neighborhood, Beverly Hills, and like look for scraps of wood that he can make into furniture in his little wood shop.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, on the wall of the wood shop, as you know, was a picture of the Long Riders cast.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he had like this vintage picture, not quite a Polaroid, but definitely like a first generation photograph that had been there for probably 40 years of the Long Rider cast.
Was that
And
the one with the Bridges brothers in it?
I don't know if the Bridges brothers are in it or not. You're in it. The guests are in it. Nick and Chris Guest.
Oh, then yeah, that was definitely after the Bridges bowed out.
And yeah, and it's just, and
Jeff didn't want to be the guy that shot Jesse James in the back.
was that really the deal? That he didn't
Yeah.
want to do that? Yeah.
That's why. Yeah.
Yeah. I look at that though, and I remember looking at that, and he pointed it out with like a sense of emotion, like it meant, like you could see without him putting it into words that it meant something to him, because he was showing me his wood shop and be like, I'm making a trunk for your daughter or something like that, and then there it was, like covered in sawdust, and it was almost like maybe it was his favorite moment from his career. I don't know if it was, but it felt like it at that point in time. And we didn't eat at his house often because his wife is a vegan, so we had to take him to Roscoe's in secret.
Right.
Or we had to take him to, he had a hamburger place up the street. He loved Lito's Pizza. I'm sure you've been there with him too.
Yes, I have. Yep.
I walked into Lito's, Bobby, the afternoon I got the news, and the news was vague with all the way people post and stuff. So I got a phone call from a friend of mine who did a Christmas Carol with us. And if you don't know, Peter did that every year for the Children's Hospital, my daughter, NMOSD
Right.
patient. And he called and said, I hope I'm not the one to tell you this, but I just read that Peter passed away, which kind of tracked because he had gone dark for about a week on his phone, which was unusual.
Right.
And I said, let me call you back. And my wife was with me. My daughter was at a museum. I picked her up and I said, you can pick two places to go, Lito's or Roscoe's. And she immediately goes, oh, those are Peter's favorite places. Is he going with us? And I was like, is he joining us? And I'm like, not this time, but we're going to go. And when I walked up to Lito's,
Yeah.
Bobby, the light in the sign went out.
Wow.
And I just like froze in the parking lot.
Wow, that's
And
really something.
I took a photo of it, and I was just like, wow, that is almost that's frighteningly appropriate.
Yes, it is.
but that was his kind of clubhouse. He and I guess you too, and I know Stacy, you guys would all play what he called bad golf because none of you guys were. Yeah, and you guys would go to pizza, or were you part of that golf clique? He would
No,
rumble.
I left the golf shenanigans to those guys.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but he'd always be like, "Do you want to play bad golf?" And I'm like, "I don't even own a set of clubs," and I would just be the one guy you wish you didn't invite. But they ended up there quite a bit. But it seemed like those guys, you guys from the Long Riders, he loved, and he said that guest house housed everybody at one point or another, including.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Well, at some points, some of his guests were struggling with different things they were battling, and it's almost like it
Right.
had a colorful history of being this sanctuary for some guys.
Well, the
You
thing
know,
is, we used to call the gates that separated the guest house from the street from at the end of the driveway. Uh, they were I can't remember the exact nomenclature. It was something like mystery gates. The house behind the mystery gates because they didn't lock, but they
yeah,
looked like they locked because they had a chain and a lock hanging on them. But the chain and the lock didn't go through both gates. It only went through one.
that's typical. But that place looked comfortable, man. He was warehousing his trunks in it, and you'd walk through his place, and it was shockingly comfortable. And he was a real inviting host. It almost didn't matter who you were. I mean, the last time when was the last time you saw him or talked to him?
Probably a couple of months ago, we had a long riders reunion lunch with Walter Hill, my brother Keith, and then a couple of people that weren't in the Long Riders, and Chris Mulkey. And yeah, it was like that.
I love Chris. He's got a great scene opposite you in that movie too. I remember we were in Roscoe's with Peter and he called your brother,
Yeah.
Keith. And your brother says, "This is Peter in a nutshell." He's like, "Let me ask Keith if he wants to do a Christmas Carol. We'll call him right now." And he calls him and your brother's like right off because Peter's asking, which tells you his clout.
Right.
Your brother said, "Yeah, I'm in, whatever you're doing for the kids." But after it, he says, "I can hear your brother say, 'Did you hear about Jimmy Kahn?'"
Ah.
And Peter Jason's response is, "Jimmy Kahn, oh, that motherfucker broke my nose on Alien Nation. He slammed my face into a steering column." And he's laughing while he's telling it, but he's like, "That guy broke my," like the immediate, like, it's one of those, like, what am I listening to at lunch? It's
Yeah.
like, and I remember like after that lunch, he goes, "Hey, take me to this pool. I want to go swimming. Can you drop me off at the pool?" And I go, "Yeah." And I'm thinking I'm taking him to like a normal pool where people would, recreation, but it's a saltwater pool in this elite, like Beverly Hills retired actors community that's kind of tucked away. And he goes, "Just pull over here." And I do. And I'm like, "Do you want me to drive you up to the gate?" He goes, "No, no, here's good." He hops the fence to get in this pool. He's like 75 at the time, and he hops the fence. He's like, "Don't worry, no, they all love me. They all love me," was his response. Did you guys get a chance to interact much on the set with Carpenter and Escape from LA? Because he was really close with John and Sandy too.
I know. We actually got to be together on the set in body bags.
Yeah.
And Escape from LA, I think I was there the one night he wasn't there because he was there pretty much every night.
Just hanging out, being social.
Well, there's a schedule in the Screen Actors Guild. I think it's called Schedule C, and they can put you on for the entire length of the movie. It's a flat rate, and you come and you go. You don't have to be there every day. And so John would always do that for Peter.
Nice. That's one of those things that you don't hear much of, but like you're indebted that he did that.
Yeah.
Uh,
No,
he,
John adored him.
yeah, he would take things up for my daughter's charity to sign with John Carpenter, and a lot of times we overdid it because John is like, he's getting up there and he likes to smoke. So I was like, "Hey, take a few extra things, see if he'll sign them for our charity auction." And Peter would go up there, and John would be like, "Oh, Peter." He'd be like, "Well, this is for this little girl who does it." And he's like, and John would always sign it. He'd be like, "Oh, okay, I'll lay it out and I'll." I'll sign up. But Peter would tell me about how they would spend Christmases up there at times, and and John was, I guess, in the late one of the recent visits, John was getting ready to direct a movie completely via Zoom from his desk in Europe or
Wow.
something. And just like those kind of like idiosyncrasies with people that you could tell how deep the friendship ran. I mean, he would get in, like I would sit at his table at lunch, and it's not who called, but it's a mix of who called and what the conversation was like. It was so they loved to talk to him. Like the guys in Spinal Tap loved to talk to him, and it was like you and your brother. And it was like he talked about you a lot, actually. That's why
Ah, sweet.
he said you were one of the best guys to ever be in a room with. I remember him telling me that over lunch one day.
Well, clearly he forgot about David. David and Peter were, yeah, that was an inimitable conversation, those two guys.
Yeah. I know you both worked with John Wayne too.
Yep.
And it's funny because Peter had said that when he was living in Lake Balboa, he rescued John Wayne's son Ethan from like a drowning.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
And he told John Duke that when he was on the set of Rio Lobo, and because of it, John Wayne said, "You know what? You're going to need a better hat so the audience can see you better." And
Wow.
Duke changed his hat and his costume, and I think maybe even changed his death scene a little bit so he could be seen. But do you have any memories of working with John Wayne? Because Peter would talk about him a lot. I mean, he worked with Orson Welles too. But what do you got?
Mhm. Well, I don't know if you know this, but the trailer for the movie Revenge of the Nerds, the voiceover is Orson Welles.
Was that your? Did Peter get him for you?
I don't know how we got him, but we had him.
Yeah.
But my experience on the Cowboys, which was a 15 and a half week shoot, uh, I think I'd been on location not even a week, and we're getting ready to shoot a scene where the Cowboys, each one of the Cowboys has to ride this bucking horse, and if they stay on the horse for 8 seconds, he'll consider you come higher in time.
Hey! Get off of her!
My name's Honeycutt. I'm 15, and everybody calls me Slim.
So I go first. I stay on the horse. I introduce myself. I get back on the fence because we're all sitting on the fence of the corral. Well, we get through about 3 or 4 of the boys, and A. Martinez shows up, the feisty Mexican guy. And he jumps on the horse and he breaks the horse, and he trots the horse right up to the kid that was supposed to go next. He goes, "Here, boy, maybe you can ride him now." And the kid comes off the fence, to fight A. Martinez. Well, I come off the fence to defend the kid and fight A. Martinez. And the Duke breaks us up, and he looks at me and he goes, "You, get back up on that fence where you belong now." And he turns towards A. Martinez, and I stop him. I say, "Excuse me, Mr. Wayne. I don't think you should tell me to get back on the fence where I belong. I think you should just tell me to get back on the fence because I'm the head kid." He looked at me like I had two heads, and then he lit into me with a cussing diatribe I've never heard before or since, and he reduced me to tears. So that was my first run-in with the Duke.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Well, the Duke had his ways, I guess.
Well, also, can you imagine being John Wayne and a 17-year-old kid on his first motion picture is trying to give him a fucking line reading?
Yeah.
Who does that?
Well, you.
Yeah.
What were you going to say? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to talk over you.
No, I did that. I still can't believe I did that. I mean, talk about improper set decorum. And then the next run-in, well, there was another run-in with the Duke where me and A. Martinez get in another fight. Only this time we're wearing our guns because we're going to go on a cattle drive, and all the kids are packing. And we get in a fight. A. Martinez pulls out a knife, and Duke kicks the knife out of his hand, kicks him off the ranch, and then turns to the rest of us and says, all right, any of you that has something that'll shoot, I don't care if it's a pea shooter, I want you to put it in the back of this wagon. And there's a little wagon right off camera, kind of in a carport-like thing. So everybody's putting their guns in there. And being the thinking actor that I am, I had actually tied the lanyard at the bottom of the holster around my leg, that holds the holster down so you can quick draw.
Yeah.
Well, I tied that lanyard, but it wasn't long enough to get a proper bow in it, so it had a square knot. So I got a little hung up untying that lanyard, and I grabbed my gun, and I'm playing really bummed out that I have to give up my gun, so I'm kind of dragging my feet. Well, there's a tag to the scene where the littlest kid and Duke Wayne have this little moment together. Well, sure as shit, I got there just a few minutes too late. The Duke, stopped. He stopped seeing the parade of kids come by, so he figured it was time to continue the scene. Except that was the exact moment that I came by. I bumped him in the stomach with my elbow, and then I threw the pistol in the back of the wagon. And that time he really chewed me out. So that was our second run-in.
Sounds like it was a good time. You know who steals that movie is Roscoe Lee Brown.
Absolutely. He killed it.
Good afternoon, mister. Are you looking for me?
Who are you?
Name's Nightlinger. Jebediah Nightlinger.
I was expecting a white man. Jim Wheeler, what happened to him?
Well, he got drunk on Sunday and married on Monday. I came in his stead.
I told him a fix I was in. He promised he wouldn't let me down.
He doesn't even wash his hands before he puts them in the pot. I do.
Can you cook?
Oh, apple pie. Green apple sliced thin. Lard, flour, salt, water to bind, sugar, cinnamon, dab of butter, 3 slashes on the crust, 1 for steam, and 2 because your mama did it that way. Good afternoon to you, lady. Am I correct?
Why, yes, indeed.
Miss Anderson.
Ma'am.
Have you ever been on a trail drive?
The Oregon, Chisholm, Santa Fe, some without names.
I don't know. I like to travel with a man I'm used to.
You'll get used to me.
What do you want for wages?
All I can get.
This job pays $100.
100?
That's the money.
Well, if you should get flooded out, stampeded out, frozen out, or scalped by wild red Indians, there'll always be substantial food on the plate and coffee on the boil. But that'll cost you $125.
You're a pretty independent character, aren't you?
It's been said of me.
Put your wagon in the barn.
Are all these small boys?
No, they're my trail hands. God help us.
Well, doesn't anything larger want to work for you?
Yeah.
Were you there when they shot the Duke's death scene?
Yes.
What was the reaction to that? Because he only died like in 4 films, but
I know.
So does he do it like you, a professional, would do it, like several times to get it right and up, down, or was it like was there some kind of ceremonial play to that?
Oh,
was
no,
it the last thing they shot?
No, but it was towards the end of the film because we shot that scene on a stage at Warner Brothers, and the stage was the last location on that film. So we had other stuff that we shot on the stage. I don't know if that was the last sequence shot in the film. It could have been.
And do people like give him a round of applause for doing a death scene, or how do people react when the Duke is doing a death scene?
You mean on the set?
Yeah, on the set.
We kind of just watched the whole thing in awe because it was so powerful, but they're doing multiple takes. So, it kind of takes the edge off it.
And does Bruce Dern, like in between takes, like have to remind himself he's doing this, or like what's the vibe like between all the actors?
Well, we're just sitting there shocked, the Cowboys, and the Rustlers and Bruce Dern. I don't really remember what they did between takes, but it was business as usual.
Yeah. You have a good working relationship with Bruce Dern?
Well, he didn't really spend any time with the Cowboys.
Yeah.
When he wasn't shooting, he was not anywhere to be found.
Did Duke know who your dad was?
Oh yeah, he worked with him.
Yeah.
In fact, well,
but
one of the things
he still lit into you, even knowing who your father was and being friends with him that way.
Oh yeah, that's what he said to me the second time I messed up a scene. He said, "Carradine, you're a goddamn bigger ham than your old man ever was." That's how he started that chew out.
Is it true your dad never said no to a job?
I would say that's probably correct.
Yeah.
He was sort of like the Peter Jason of his day.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. I don't think Peter Jason met a lunch invitation he didn't like or a job he didn't like. Another guy who was based at Warner Brothers with me also had a tremendous amount of respect for you, and that was he's a director now, Perry Lang.
Oh yeah, we're good friends.
Yeah. And he talked about you on the Big Red One, where you played legendary director Sam Fuller and his real life experiences, and Lee Marvin a lot.
Yeah.
But he said that everyone wanted to follow your lead.
As we slogged through the hedgerows and across France, the sergeant began keeping to himself. It was a little spooky. He told Vince he fought around here in the First War. He kept ahead of us as if he's looking for some old ghost to rise up out of the mist.
Kaiser, your turn at bat.
Would you look how fast they put up the names of all our guys who got killed?
That's a World War I memorial.
But the names are the same.
They always are.
Like you were seen as like the Laurence Olivier as of the platoon. Has he ever told you that?
No, he never has.
Yeah, he said like once Carradine got his wrapped his head around what we were doing, we all kind of fell in line and tried to do our best bit. And he did tell me he got into it with Lee Marvin once and had to apologize. But
yeah, we were all shocked. Do you know that story?
When he said something. You might tell it better. Like he said something about, or Lee Marvin, who was a World War II veteran, said, "What are you doing with your hands?" Like Perry overacted and
right.
So I'll leave the story to you, though. It's probably better coming from
Perry is supposed to go check out this tank with a bunch of dead Germans laying around it. Yeah. And the way he was walking, he was swinging his hands. And Lee said, if you do it again, don't do that with your hands. That doesn't look right. And Perry said, if I'm going to get any direction, I'll get it from the director. Thank you. He said that to Lee Marvin. We were stunned.
Yeah, but
pretty gutsy.
Yeah, but he did say, and I guess the version of the story I got was that Lee was like, all right, but he did go and apologize later. Was it you that told him he needed to go apologize, or did he know to do it on his own? Do you remember?
I think he figured it out on his own.
Yeah.
Perry does not suffer fools lightly.
No, he doesn't. He did say he felt terrible about it. He did have like a lifelong friendship with Lee after that movie until Lee passed away.
Yeah, he did.
And he did tell me the greatest Lee Marvin drunk story I've ever heard. You know, the one with John Borman. Do you know that one?
I don't know that one. There's so many.
Well, they're in Santa Monica drinking, and they have a fight over the car keys or who's going to drive home. Borman gets the keys and says, F you, Lee, I'm out of here, and takes off down Pacific Coast Highway at high speeds. He gets pulled over by the police. The cop walk up to the driver's side window, and he rolls it down, and he's like thinking he's going to jail for drunk driving. And the officer says, I got a question for you. And he's like, yes. He's like, is that Lee Marvin hanging onto your roof? He had hung on to the roof since Santa Monica, like almost all the way up to Broad Beach or someplace ridiculous.
Oh my God. That is so funny.
The cop was just stunned, but I guess had like sort of a stunned calm about it. He's like, I just have a quick question about it. But, Perry talked very highly of you. Peter Jason, of course, was special in so many ways. And I think the thing I loved about him most, obviously, was just the fact that he bought into everyone's potential. Really just loved to have like loved life and loved conversations and just,
yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of stories we can't tell because it involved him being sort of like a probation officer for other people who probably who needed his help. I mean, Dennis Quaid story comes to mind. I don't want to get into it, but and the people who depended on him, and he would tell the things in somewhat still guarded but casual, funny fashion, like this is the life we've chosen,
right?
But they're probably not fit to retell to everybody. You know what I mean? So,
yeah, probably not.
But I know that he held you in very high regard, Bobby, and
well, thanks, Ethan. Thanks for setting this up so we could revisit the life and times of Peter Jason.
Yeah, I would love to get into more with you at a later point in time, and I'm sorry I got derailed, but it may just be a way of me coping, talking about some of these other adventures you've been on with some of these other productions, because sometimes, I got a phone call from one of his friends too, and he said, I don't know what I'm going to do if he's dead. And he hadn't known officially. And I said, we're just going to have to do what we can to compensate for the hole we've got now. We're just going to have to be the bright sort of sense of positive energy that he was. And I'm not sure I've fully come to grips that I can't call him anymore, or.
I'm right there with you. I can hear his voice, and I'm right there with you, man. It's hard to believe he's gone.
Yeah, so thank you for letting me get distracted with stories about some of these other characters in your life, Perry Lang and John Wayne and stuff, because I think it makes the conversations about Peter a little bit more enjoyable and less painful. Bobby, if there's anything we can do for you, please let me know. Anything for any of Peter's friends, of course.
In a major motion picture?
Well, you would think the guy who's done 200 movies would know how to react. Get him singing for a minute.
What the heck's going on here? Everybody seems to be making a major motion picture here. What's going on? What are you looking at?
The good-looking man that I
Let me show you.
see many times.
Baby. So what's going on?
We're getting ready, my friend, for the Christmas Carol.
Hark the herald angels sing, glory to the newborn King, peace on earth and mercy mild, something like that. Well, I better go learn my lines. Nice talking to you.